hair is next level, my guy.
This is the longest my hair has been in legit like 20 years.
Is it really?
Yeah. Because I haven't, obviously I haven't been able to go see anybody who can cut it.
See, for me, the big thing is as soon as it starts encroaching on the top of my ears, that's when I start going crazy.
Right, I hate that. But yeah. I've been basically an Indian Bruce Lee for like about a week now. It's been awful.
Well, you know what? Honestly, it's a good look. It's actually better than I was expecting, to be honest.
That's fair. It could have gotten a whole lot worse.
Oh,
I will say I'm shocked the beard wasn't the first mention, but all right.
That's the thing. I was expecting caveman. I'm expecting caveman.
I was expecting down to here.
I'm surprised it's not longer. On. Where's the neck beard? I need the neck.
I just look like a wizard.
Yeah.
I look like Indian Gandalf.
And you let me down. You let me down.
I know. I'm sorry I disappointed you. That's a great start to this show, is being deeply upset at the fact that I'm not more unkempt.
Hey, welcome to the Async Podcast. My name is Arneet Singh. I am your host. Thank you for tuning in. It's been a week since the last episode. I'm thankful if you did listen to it. If you didn't, welcome in. I am not going to be exclusive. This is for you. I love you guys, whoever you are. This is for you. As you've probably noticed with the last few episodes or like this entire run so far, I am jack of all trades, master of none, have a million different interests. So I wanted to get into sports when I did. I got into movies when I did. And now we're getting into a political pod. And I'm actually really excited because for the people who are watching the video, the people who can see him above or to the side, I don't know how it's going to orient. But this is a friend of mine from 10 years ago who I actually haven't spoken to since I moved to New Zealand back in 2009. And
it has been that long, hasn't it? Good God.
It's been that long, my dude. And I'm really excited to get to talk to him about some politics stuff, and you're going to love his passion and enthusiasm. So please give a warm welcome to Andrew Nasargan. How are you doing, sir?
Hello. It's been a surreal couple of months.
Yeah.
Surreal has been my go-to term for it because I think it's just been helpful that way. No, this is fantastic. I'm glad you invited me on. It's been a hell of a weird year. And I feel like politics in general has kind of been fundamentally broken since 2016, but that's a whole different thing for a different time period. As far as speaking to who I am very swiftly, so I don't want to reveal too much because I don't want to accidentally get my bosses in trouble for potentially saying something that might be a little bit too socialist and a little bit too angry. I'm in education. I work in education.
We are triple sourcing everything, so it's okay.
We are as hard left wing as you can find nowadays. But to be fair, and I'll talk about that a little bit more when we get into it, it's kind of hard not to be, considering the other side is consistently blasting off their own toes, but here we are.
But we will definitely get into
definitely that. Talk about it. But as far as expertise, I want to quickly say at the top of the hour before anybody blames me for anything, because easy. As much as Arneet is proposing I am an expert on things, I consider myself educated. I do not consider myself the end-all be-all of anything. And if I say something stupid, because it has been 10 years since Arneet has seen me, and he has not seen me be a relatively humble human being, please tell me when I'm wrong. It happens. Just
leave a comment. Let us know when we're being blowhards, because that's what we're actively trying not to be.
Welcome to what happens when you put opinionated people in a box for 2 months. Eventually, we just have to yell at something.
Now, before we get too deep into it,
yes.
Because it's been 10 years, and because I still consider you actually a really good friend. You were always the most wonderful human being in the world to me.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
No, you earned it. You being you. But I wanted to give you a little bit of quarantine, almost like a gift wrap gift here.
Oh, please do.
Yeah. So we both know her. She's a wonderful, wonderful person. And I don't know the last time you talked to her, but please welcome the one, the only, my old next door neighbor, Sher-Min.
Hey!
What's up?
Oh my God, this is fantastic.
Connect your
She's
audio.
She's connected to audio. Give it a second.
There she is.
Oh my gosh, this is amazing.
So you have no idea. I was like sitting here waiting to join. And I was like, oh, please God, don't tech your shoes.
No.
People like all my work conferences, so I know how to use Zoom.
I've been trying really hard to make sure this audio is working just this one time.
So I'm like, okay, this is a real podcast on a real channel with real people. Like, don't embarrass me.
I have to care.
SherMin, how are you? Boo, it's been so long since we talked to you.
Well, doing pretty well. Very tired of being quarantined, but it's for the best. So
Your
I feel
apartment
like
looks
in the space of
swanky
time,
though. Like
I was going to
the
say, it looks
space to
amazing
be
in there.
in during quarantine.
Thank you. I would give you a tour.
Huge
but I
fan.
Whoa, where did you go?
Oh,
There's
She
our
moved
first
her
tech
computer
issue.
slightly and the connection dropped. Oh my God.
I'm gonna get a message soon.
Slightly-
She's gonna be like, I knew it.
and it immediately embarrasses her on a podcast. There is not a better way to begin podcasting than completely biffing it by
She
accident.
would just stare at her when she comes in. Just stare.
Oh, entirely. Just stare directly into camera.
Did I get kicked out? I did get kicked
You
out.
did.
You kicked yourself out.
I kicked myself out. How did I kick myself out?
I didn't
No.
do it.
You're acting like we understand Zoom? That's not a thing.
I think it kicked me out. So things are the apartment tour right now. You didn't clean up.
You're fine. I literally, the only space that's clean in my room right now is this box. I even cleaned like just whatever would be in this part of the mirror. That was cleaned. Everything else is garbage.
You're just like, I know enough of this corner is going to be in shot that I
Yeah.
need to clean it.
Yeah.
Just finagle the
it's-
corner you're going to zoom in, like you're going to use for Zoom.
No, it's
But no, I feel
working
like-
smarter, not harder.
Isn't that a current going joke on the internet? Is like everybody has cleaned exactly one corner of their apartment in the past 2 months.
Well,
It's a going joke if you live in New York, it's like your apartment is only one corner big. So
Oh, that's fair. It is New York City. Good God. So you're in New York nowadays. So I knew that. I didn't know. So how long?
Been in New York since 2013, so I've been here for a while now.
Okay. And Arneet, you're currently in Los Angeles, right?
land of dreams.
So I am the alone
I'm
person
here.
filming from our 3 hometowns.
Yep.
It
I
is-
haven't been back to Seattle in 3 years, and that was just for 4 days.
I was supposed to be back in Seattle this weekend. I had to cancel my ticket. So
And here we are. No, one shot. What's the weather right now?
yeah, so are
Just
you guys still quarantined?
Beautiful sunshine out there. Yeah, no, I think everybody, Washington State, New York, California, anywhere that's like liberal-ish is probably still on stay-at-home.
And
Anybody who has a sensible governor.
Yeah, exactly.
Seriously, like anybody who has like sensible politicians in charge who are like, please stay inside.
It's so
COVID
crazy.
is making my parents like steadily less conservative. Like every day they call me and they're like, "Yeah, Republicans suck." Sorry, I don't mean to.
Oh,
get
no,
too
that's-
vocal about that, but-
No, that's the whole point of the podcast. My mom has definitely shifted a lot more to the liberal wing as things have gone by, because I think the response has just been so poor
Yeah.
that she's just like, I have no justification to ever think these people are worth voting.
Well, and my mother's a nurse as well. Like she retired like thankfully a
Oh.
few months ago. So like for her it's extremely personal because she's like, yeah, my coworkers are in danger, my colleagues are in danger, and like these jerks in Michigan are out there protesting and like complaining about nurses and like
Well, I'm not gonna immediately
for her.
make this about race, but from the spread here, we have 3 Asian Americans whose parents are probably all pretty conservative. Who turns out crises kind of make people a little bit more liberal when things come down to it.
Yeah, I'm lucky that my parents have
So,
always
all
been
right.
Democratic voters. So my mom is like the
Oh,
most
well.
spiritual homebody on the face of the earth, and she's having a field day not reading the news but still commenting on it. So like she has that one part of her that's a little conservative, but thankfully it's in support of people that we actually like. So
Well, there you go.
oh god, I love your mom. She like has her herbal tea and her coloring books.
yo, like 10 minutes before we started this, she cut fruit and put it aside and was like, "Hey, do you have time?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So I'm like sitting in here eating fruit as quickly as I can, and they're in there watching Korean dramas, my mom and my sister. And like that's been like the
hilarious. I love
portrait of quarantine for them for like the last 2 weeks, I think 3 weeks.
For my mom and dad, it's been, and Sher-Min will probably get a kick out of this. It's been a lot of like British period pieces. It's been a lot of like, very much like Victorian British dramas where I'm like, guys, I don't need to hear about what happened with another like aristocratic family in a fictional story I don't care about. Like, I love you, but no.
Are you doing Downton Abbey?
Oh, they're
ripping that
long
up?
since past that. They
Oh,
moved on to like the BBC series that like 5 people have heard of tops.
Oh god.
God, which one?
I'm actually, I'll get a note for next time to like, here is the last thing that they watched, but it's been hilarious. Well, good to see you. It's been forever too. I haven't seen either of you in 10 years, and I feel like this is a weird reunion special, if not also a podcast.
Along the same lines of talking about race and stuff, like let's be real for a second, all right? These three frames we got going on with Asian Americans look exactly the same as they did in high school. Our skin does not crack.
Well, okay, Andrew, you did not go to our 10-year. You did not go to our 10-year reunion. I went to the 10-year reunion. People were like, "Oh my God, no. You look exactly the same. Like you have the same haircut. Like you look exactly the same."
It was really funny because do you remember from high school? Do you remember Alex Smith? He was in our chem class. I think he was in our gov class, but wonderful guy. He and I have been friends for 10 years, and we were staring at the 10-year reunion thing of like, do we do it? No, that's a dumb idea.
Wish you did.
You don't go back there anymore.
Went exactly the way my high school went. I hung out with like the friends I hung out with in high school in the corner, and it's like, this is exactly how high school went.
Like, oh, nothing has changed.
I don't know about you guys, but I felt pretty good growing up in Redmond. I felt like it was a really nice area. I feel like the people were genuinely pretty friendly. Sure. There was...
I would argue that because of the Asian American community in the area, it's definitely a lot more open to that kind of thing. But hey, and this is to Indian guy, but as the darker one of the two of us, I definitely did have to deal with some stuff from high school that I'm like, looking back, I'm like, no, pretty sure that was racist. And it's more of an underlying thing than it is the like overwhelming where it's like, oh, it's the like in your face, non-subtle. But there are a lot of subtle moments that looking back, I'm like, that is actually weird. And maybe it's because my education recently, as far as being an educator, has been so focused on like equity and, being able to explain racism to white people that I'm just like a little bit too hyper aware of it now. But I think like observing my own past, I've been like, wait, was that race motivated? That's uncomfortable.
It's the hindsight of it. You start thinking back to that kind of stuff. But that's the thing. I pushed so much of that back that I just didn't even think about it until like
missing much.
I only started getting woke in college. Like that's really when I started like realizing, okay, you're going in a direction that I would have been comfortable with if I wasn't so much more informed now.
I would argue that like that's probably a lot of us. I would argue that a huge chunk of contingent of people who were born in the 21st century, like that you learned really fast that you were in the wrong. And I feel like a lot of us who went to college during like the early 2010s, that was that realization of like, ooh, maybe I am the one in the wrong here. Maybe I should do some more research. And because of that, I think we were more open to it. I mean, hell, I have to explain that to students in the classes I work at nowadays who are, trans or gay, who are uncomfortable with like, why aren't rights moving so fast? I'm like, look, don't get me wrong, right? Absolutely, rights should be moving as fast as humanly possible. And like everybody deserves to be a human being. But in 2006 or 2003, I can't remember which one, like there was a constitutional amendment to try and ban gay marriage. Like, let's not undercut how far we've come in 14 years. Like we've come pretty far in a short period of time. I'm not saying that's where we stop, but I think as far as like a nation, we have changed pretty dramatically, pretty swiftly. It's not the best, but it's better.
I think the other reason that the reason I didn't get woke until college was because a lot of the issues that pertain to us and actually started seeing progress of like the way that we interpreted them were affected by our age at the time. And Andrew, when we were talking before, you brought up a really good point that because of the millennial generation, everything that we've gone through to this point, like the last 12 years, there's a very likely chance we're not going to be the thought leaders of the future of the next 20 years, maybe.
No, and actually, so I'll bring that point up in full so SherMin can hear it, is that, so when I was originally talking to Arneet about it this morning, I think I've come to the realization that our generation might just not be, and I think Arneet put it really well there, we might just not be the thought leaders of the next round of America. Because burnout and the fact that a lot of us have now, and I was talking with someone about this morning, like we've had to deal with 2 once-in-a-lifetime financial crises.
Oh, yeah.
Like we are dealing with a massive, unique situation that has led to severe burnout and mental anguish amongst our entire generation. And I think it's entirely fair to say that a lot of us are just done. And that's not necessarily a good or bad thing. It's just kind of, I think, a fact of the matter. I don't know about you guys, but in the course of up until now, I worked 50 some odd hours a week since I graduated college. And that was just normal. Like before this quarantine crisis, I had not taken a significant vacation in, I think, 2 years. And I say significant vacation in the form of like more than 3 days.
In a historical term, do you think we're the next lost generation?
I think
I don't like to think of us that way.
Oh, isn't it sad?
I don't like to think of us that way, but I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, what are we going to contribute to this?
Like at 27, I shouldn't feel this old.
Exhausted.
And like you said, beaten down and burned out. It just seems like it's one barricade after another that we seem to have to try to find a way around.
Yeah, I think we have some numbness to crises at this point. Like, you can't scare millennials anymore because it's like, wait, this is the crisis? We grew up with 9/11, then we had the financial crisis, then we had like a bunch of wars, then we had Trump, then we had this. It's like, okay, how many, like, there's been so many crises.
And the frustrating thing for it, especially, and I think what really gets to me, is the inherent, what seems to be unfairness of it, of like, none of this was caused by us. We did not wake up one morning and crash the financial systems. We did not wake up one morning and vote in Trump. Like, we did not cause any of these things that are directly affecting us. And I think that's why I feel like if millennials are going to be moving into the future here, we're probably going to be the generation that just like doesn't really affect all that much, because we're just so used to the universe and chaos just throwing whatever die they decide to. Because we also keep in mind, and this is something the New York Times keeps printing, is like, we still have climate change on the horizon. Like, this is not like, if we're talking about overwhelming, overbearing issues, like, I don't want to be the immediate downer on the one podcast I was invited on, by the way. But let's be serious. Like, COVID will pass. COVID will absolutely pass. As I've told many students, this is a temporary lockdown that will inevitably pass when we eventually build a vaccine. There are hundreds of them already being built. We'll be okay as a society. And that's not like thousands are still going to die. And that's not to undercut that. That's still going to happen. Yeah. But a good majority of us as a society will make it through. However, the other actual existential crisis of the world drowning is also still on the horizon. And that's just another, and that's where I feel just like, and I feel exactly to what Arneet's saying. I'm just like what's the point anymore? Right. That inherent exhaustion that comes with being like, I have no control over anything anymore.
I think the counterpoint that I would make to that theory is we may not have a choice, but to be the thought leaders of the future, because like, let's be real, Gen Z, whatever amazing progress they're making in their ideology, in their view of the world, they're still really young and they're still figuring stuff out. And we're supposed to be the generation that, like, from now until we're like in the next 7 to 8 years, maybe even less, we have to start taking up that mantle of that we need to be able to at least start shaping the next 20 years. And we can't rely on the people behind us to do what the people ahead of us weren't able to do to set us up. Like, it's a weird paradox, but I don't see any other way out of it. And I don't think the country I think the country will suffer if we decide to say, okay, I just don't have anything left in me. Like, I don't think that's an option.
Right.
Well, I think one of the big things is millennials have got to go out and vote. They have got to become a voting bloc. They're still not a voting bloc. Bernie Sanders rallies had higher turnouts than the voting, like the polls in the same district. Come on, you guys have got to go out. Like, people have got to go out and vote.
Which is insane to me. Like, I remember seeing, and both of you can probably speak to this as well as people who pay relative attention to politics. I remember seeing Warren's rallies and seeing how full those were, and seeing the number of people that she shook hands with, and which, by the way, now that we look back, that's an infection vector. But sorry, but post Corona criticism.
It's true.
But it is like, it is inspirational to look back at some of those Bernie rallies and some of those Warren rallies and just see the number of motivated people. And then you look at the voter apathy numbers, and it's insane to me to be like, so what, were you out there for the look? Like, were you not out there to care about the politics of it? What were you doing?
Right. Like, I know it's not fun to go wait in lines, but you have to do it. I'm sorry, you have to.
And to be fair, like, I'm really glad. And once again, living in Washington State, comparatively to you two guys, I have this advantage. We have universal vote by mail.
That should be required.
Should be standard.
I'm somewhat hopeful that COVID will push that into the norm.
Right. Well, the good news on that is there was some stuff about it this morning. It looks like Michigan is moving to that. Florida looks like they're moving towards that. So there are some and especially the only reason I know that is because he yelled about it on Twitter, because of course he yelled about it on Twitter. But on that, yeah. So he started with. So, oh God, words. The battleground, some of the battleground states, and some of the states most affected by COVID-19 looked like they're moving towards vote by mail, if only for safety, not even for the good reason of they should have done it in the first place.
The thing is, the effectiveness of that is going to entirely rely on, can USPS actually stay running past September without being either privatized or just simply going away until there's public funding.
So they're running a variety of different donation groups. Oliver did his donation run with the stamps.
Yeah.
It's not going to keep them afloat for long, but keep in mind, and this is a big deal because I always remember this one, we just need to keep things running until January, guys. just until next January. Just hope against hope that the election goes the way that all three of us want, and then all of the institutions that need funding can go back to normal. That is the hope. But you never know, man. I thought he wasn't going to win in 2016. I've been wrong before.
Some of you might be a little bit confused right now. Suddenly Arneet is on his own talking to you. That's because I'm breaking up this conversation that ended up running 2.5 hours long into 5 parts. I had such a blast talking to Andrew and Sher-Min, and I didn't want you guys to, burn out on a super, super long podcast when you could be watching, 2 Rian Johnson movies or Pirates of the Caribbean or what have you. So these 5 parts are going to be little 20-minute size bite chunk pieces. But I'm doing that because I really had so much fun talking to these guys. It had been so long, and I felt like such a part of something in a way that I hadn't since quarantine started. So, and I hope you guys all felt the same way. So stay tuned for part 2. It's coming soon. Stay sharp, stay motivated. Peace out.